All right. So today we're actually going to have some sort of like a short lecture, uh, because I'll spend more time doing also like a in-class activity. All right. So the whole point of like activities is to see how useful content analysis could be, right? Like at the practical level. How can we use content analysis to achieve uh, some professional ends or things we could do in order to help us with business, with communication, with persuasion, with public policy, etc. So if you were here on Wednesday or you've watched a lecture, so the most obvious one to use, and it's actually the most prominent content analysis practice nowadays, is used for social media analytics and like content analytics in general. And that is to say, analytics mean is looking into how pieces of content work in achieving the strategic objectives. So when you apply content analysis, let's say to social media post, you want to see which posts work better, right? In order to increase the performance of your social media pages. So you do content analysis, you compare different categories of content, and you see which category works better uh, in terms of whatever goal you have, like likes, in terms of shares, click through rates, etc., etc. Why would um why is categorization useful though? Why would it be helpful? Can you think of an example of like why content analysis can be useful for the social media content strategy? How would that work? And feel free to answer in the chat. Uh, so to repeat my question, how would content analysis be useful for social media content strategy? Um, like, how can it be useful for me to make my content better? Can you think of an example, for instance, based on the in-class exercise on Wednesday, or based on what you read or what you see? Right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So yeah, if you look into right, um, so if you look at the commonalities, one way is to look at the commonalities or like the different theme, the similar themes, sorry, in popular posts. So if you look, for example, at the top 50 posts in your social media account, do they share some common themes? You can then categorize them different ways. You look at the, let's say, top 50, bottom 50, and then like some mid 50 posts. And then let's say, okay, which themes could unify them? What's a common thread? And that's basically content analysis. You're categorizing your post based on different themes. So, for example, you could say like sarcastic, or using meme, versus like pop culture references, promotional, informational, etc., etc. And then you measure engagement based on like different categories, and that could allow you to see, okay, this type of content is better, right? You might also write if based on the appeal of the post. So, for instance, for example, I gave in the practice, if you're a donut shop, you can look into the engagement by the target audience. So the posts that talk about coffee versus the posts that talk about donuts, let's say, do we see different levels of engagement based on the demographics, right? It could be that older people like coffee posts more than they like donut posts, and but younger people like donut posts more than they like coffee posts. Just giving an arbitrary example, right? This is not a confirmed hypothesis, but you could see the idea, right? Like the idea is I can compare the type of content into the licensure. And that's different than just looking casually into like a Twitter feed or an Instagram feed and then guess what's driving up engagement, right? So yeah, like type posts in terms of like the content itself, which will allow you to make comparison of what works versus what doesn't work as effectively. You can also understand general sentiment. Um, so if you want to explore public opinion, if you want to explore public opinion, then you can look into what people are talking about. So I can look, for instance, if you're focusing, let's say, on in San Diego, how are people feeling about the closure, opening, or reopening decision? I can track via like specific hashtags, then download like a large sample of tweets and see how people feel without the need to interview anyone, right? If I'm tracking, for example, a response to a specific movie, right? Or like a new show that Netflix has just dropped. If I want to see the reaction, right, I can go to social media and track the social conversations. Um, and so that's called social listening, by the way. It's called either social listening or social monitoring. It's something like there are many multiple tools to do. So I'll ask you an example. So suppose, how many of you have Disney Plus? Okay, Emily. So Emily, have you watched The Mandalorian season two?
Not the whole thing, but I've watched part of it, yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. All right. So assuming you work for Disney, like you're an employee of Disney, and they ask you to see what the reaction to each episode is. Okay,
Yeah.
you have the technological tools to get the data. Don't worry about that part. But which categories would you use to classify the public sentiment or the people's opinion? Can you think of like very simple category to sort the reviews out?
Like categories, like what do you mean by category?
Yeah, like how would you classify the content? You have 100,000 tweets about the Mandalorian. What categories would you use that would be helpful to Disney
I mean,
that could
very
answer?
simply, you could have positive and negative, but that's very
Right.
simplistic.
Yeah, yeah, but that's a good start. Yeah,
Yeah, like
so you could
that's
have
probably
positive, negative. Yeah, so positive, negative, and maybe neutral. So like someone just saying I watched it without expressing anything, right? So you can have positive and negative, and then what words would you associate with positive?
I mean, maybe love or just like positive reactions like that versus negative, like hate, like dislike,
Mhm. Yeah,
things like that.
yeah. So I loved it. I liked it. Yeah, great,
Yeah, great,
awesome,
good,
and then the
amazing,
negative. Yeah, yeah,
terrible,
yeah.
awful.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So these are the tags. Remember, so these are the tags. So some descriptives about the content which you would then associate with a category, right? So great, awesome, those would be positive, but things like awful, terrible, mediocre would be negative, right? That's simple one. So that, yeah, that would be helpful for Disney to assess the reactions, even without like the need to conduct a survey or like focus group. Plus the viewership, of course, that's a different metric. And speaking of shows, it could also be used for cinematic and artistic evaluation. So that is to say, you could predict the success of movies, music clips by analyzing key components. So, for example, if I would look into the top 100 films and shows, like in a given year, or even monthly, right? So I end up with like 1,000 films and shows, and I want to see which ones succeed. I could then categorize those shows and those films and see the commonalities between the most successful ones. So I see, for instance, that okay, well, let me ask you, which type of movies are now like, or like have been the top grossing in the United States, say, for the last 10 years, 10, yeah, for the last 10 years, which type of movies always get like the first like ranking in the box office? They usually cost tons of money as well. They cost tons of money, but they generate tons of money as well. What genre of movies are the most popular, or like have been the most popular for the last 10 years? Any guesses? Well, they're superhero movies. Yeah, like yeah, movies about superheroes. If you looked into like the last 10 years, like in terms of like the box office, the top films have been superhero movies. And so you can then, if you just wanna see the link between the success of the film, not, you can then have 6 or 7 major categories of films, and then you see how they correspond to the box office earnings or the streaming viewership, right? So that's, you do that. That's content analysis. You can then look at the specific thing. So movies in which the lead role is played by a male actor versus the lead roles in which like a female actress is playing. Movies in which you have a diverse cast versus a less diverse cast. The diversity of the cast, for instance, predicts the success of the movie. That's something you can do with content analysis. So that's basically content analysis, right? Um, so yeah, the for so this an example we gave like about social media. Content analysis can give us an explanation into why certain posts generate more likes and clicks than other, right? So if I want to know what type of posts generate uh, more likes, right? What I'm doing, I need to start with content analysis, right? Would that type of research be considered exploratory or explanatory? I want to see uh, what type of post or what category of post generate highest number of likes. Is that an exploratory research or explanatory research? Kylie, can you answer why?
Yeah, I would think it's exploratory mainly because if you're just comparing posts, like you're seeing what, um, like which one has more likes or something like that, it's not necessarily coming up with a theory as to why they're like that. It's just more of like comparing them, if that makes sense.
And what theory would you use then? What example? What do you mean by theory? So if you have, if I say, for example, post with that type of theme would generate higher number of likes, would that be a
Um,
theory?
I'm not sure. I mean, I was thinking of it more of like um explanatory would be like to me how I thought about it was that explanatory is like if you're coming up with a reason why
Mm-hmm.
with the comparison, but if I mean if it's just like comparing the two posts and you're just kind of seeing visually, then it's exploratory, I would think.
Right.
I'm not really sure though.
No, now your answer is correct, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. So if you're saying, if I'm just showing this category of post has this number of likes, and so number one has like 60 likes on average, number two has like 80% likes on average, then yeah, it's just exploratory. It's explanatory where I can link it to another variable. So if I'm saying category one like tend to appeal to younger audiences, therefore it's generating more likes because they are more like they are concentrated more into this platform. So if you can link it then to another variable, right, even using content analysis, then yeah, it's explanatory, right? But you're absolutely right, Colin. Like if it's not linked to another variable, it's still exploratory. So yeah. But yeah, but then cognisis can allow you then to explain why this is why, not what, but why certain posts generate more likes and clicks than others. Then also this is an example of what I meant by like symptom analysis. So this is then the optional paper I added. So they looked into about depression on in social media. So what they read the tweets with the hashtag depression or depressed, and so they came up with uh, 7 different themes that are associated with uh, depressive sentiments. So, like dysfunctional thoughts, lifestyle challenges, social struggles, pretending to be someone else or hiding behind a mask, sadness, suicidal thoughts. So they found out what type of sentiments or emotions or traits that are associated with depression. Can you think of like how this type of research might be useful for society at large? How can this research be useful for society? So, if we know the things associated with depression, uh, how can that be useful to us? Assuming you run public policy, for public health, for education, how can that be useful? Right, right, exactly. Um, so yeah, if you want to understand symptoms of depression or signs of depression, or things or like words or specific issue by which you can approach uh, depression patients, then yes, doing this type of content analysis makes you see even without or like before you conduct like a clinical assessment. Of course, clinical assessments are necessary, but just in general, from public communication, from public information being posted online, you can then see if like a friend is suffering, or like a kid, or like a student in the school, or like a roommate. By looking at these different categories, if you see that like yeah, their content is more is falling under one of them, then you could realize that yeah, this might be related to a clinical depression. So it helps for intervention, it helps for therapy, counseling, making changes to like a school policy, college policy, etc. Okay, so that was my short lecture. So now we will. So we would continue with the content analysis exercise. So if you were here, you would basically just continue. If you're not, can, can start and see how it works. And so now we'll do the exercise, but slightly differently. Um, so because now you have the categories by which you can code the post or the tweet, go back to the team and then see if you agree with the designation of the tweets. So there is like a table already, or like a coding scheme by which you can compare against. Uh, Go and look into all of the tweets in the list and see if you agree with the coding assignment that the other person has given, right? So now, because we mentioned like in content analysis, once you have a coding scheme, you have to work off that guide. See if you apply it yourself to the content, you would reach the same results that the other person in the group has reached. Okay, I have made the coding guide ready, so we have two tables, and if you have developed one already in a group, you could use that. But once the agreements are resolved, disagreements are resolved, go back and clarify the definitions given to the categories. So if you find, for example, like in line number 38, you disagree about the designation. It was written two, but you think it should be three. Go back as a group and see where the confusion comes from, and then clarify that in the definition, right? So that will allow you to discover if your definitions are very clear and mutually exclusive, as we've said. So what I'm going to do now is like I'm going to open breakout rooms. Okay. So we'll have, okay, so I have open. So if you were here on Wednesday, you can just rejoin the same group that you worked with before. If you're not, I could assign you to a different group. So who was not? So who wasn't here on Wednesday? All right. Could you all join one room? So Tiffany, Emily, Natalie, Kate, Kylie, and Bree, and Maya.
What room is that?
It should. Oh, the rooms are, it should be room 4. Do you see the rooms, one or?
How do you know what room you're in?
You pick the room. You should see.
Mine is not letting me join a room.
You cannot join any room.
No, it was all the rooms were there, and so I clicked room 4, and then it didn't take me to room 4, and then now there's no rooms there.
Uh, so Kate, were you here on Wednesday or not?
No.
Okay, so I'll just assign you myself.
Okay.
So Terrence, do you remember who? So who were in your group?
It was. Give me a second. Right here. With Emilio and Annie.
Okay, so none is none of them is here.
I don't think any of my group members are here either.
Okay. So I guess I'll make you join another group. That's fine, but they will share the same document with you. So that's fine. You should just look into the coding scheme they're using and see if you agree. And it would be interesting to see if you have disagreements or agreements. Okay. So I'm just going to assign you to. So you should see them. Maya, are you here?
Yeah, I wasn't here Wednesday, so I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you should join room 4. You should see the invite. Did you get it? Maya. Okay.